Welcome back to another Saturday morning skate. Obviously without Ked because it's in the AM and he is never in the AM. But I am joined today by the Boston Unites crew, the Beanpot 3, the Tres Amigas de Beanpot. Mary Ciampa from Women X, Linda Lundrigan, and Kelly Dyer Hayes, all three Northeastern alum, all three witness to history at the Women's Beanpot. And we just figured it would be good to come on, talk about everyone's impressions, catch up, and see what's next for this mighty trio. So who wants to go first with the biggest takeaway from or iconic image from the night?
I think you should go, Mary.
Well, someone told me that, we all as Americans focus on, data and specific outcomes, and to remind ourselves to think about the feeling. And I would have to say that is what my takeaway was from January 23rd. It feels like just last week, but the feeling of we made it and possibility, and the crowd, young and old, I hate to say old, but older, coming together for this historic event was beyond anything I have felt in my life. And so it was absolutely incredible to just hear the cheers, see the young people bouncing around, singing, people bumping into each other in the hallways, Beanpot Hall of Famers saying, I remember the days when I could hear the coaches screaming at each other during the championship, and like the snack bags opening up, and then one Hall of Famer said, we had to go to the balcony. Can you believe it? There were no seats. And so she was just thrilled to see everybody there supporting our elite athletes, and then honoring also the women who came before them and saying, these are the women's shoulders we're standing on, and they are the ones who played the game, showed up and made that night possible for them to be playing at the Garden. So
my answer is a little shorter, but I would just say, as Mary was commenting, sort of just the feeling is just the power of the energy in that building. And again, just really focusing on like the community that came together from all walks of life was really quite remarkable. Really just a couple times I just sat down quietly by myself and just like took a minute to feel it. And I was like, this is absolutely incredible.
Same. I mean, I think that's what Mary originally said. It didn't sell out the upper part of the arena, but it sure felt like every seat was full in that place. And we had our download meeting as a group with the wider group this past week, and we were talking about it. And Allison Quant Westgate was saying, God, the concourse was just bumping. Like everybody was just the energy, the kids, like you felt it. And when I walked out, we saw the number before we went out to we were at the Northeastern pregame event, and we were getting the number. We were getting the updates like hour by hour from the Garden people. And we saw the number up at 10 or so, really up there. But when I walked out from the concourse, when the announcements were starting for the lineups, I was with my brother and my sister-in-law. And I was like, we got to go. We got to get out there. And we couldn't find a seat. But I walked out the concourse and I just looked around with the lights off, and I started crying. And my sister-in-law was like rubbing my back, and I saw a couple former players, and they were like, hey, coach. And I was like, oh, I was overtaken completely. I did not expect that, even though I knew the number was up there. So it was awesome.
So I got there really early because I didn't know where I was going or anything. And, I've been to many Bruins games, and it's always crowded. And the biggest thing to me in terms of the difference was just how happy everybody was to be there. Even after the first game, like BC people were still like, oh, we lost, but what a day, you know? And I talked about this on the podcast. I literally was like Forrest Gumping my way around the Garden. Like I got on the wrong elevator for the first game. I was walking around the 6th floor on the concourse before they were letting anybody up there. I literally did a whole lap and didn't see anyone except for a security guard. He's like, are you lost? I'm like, not really. I know I'm supposed to be up higher, but I went down. It was kind of like a clinical thing up in the press box. Like no one was, you know, they're not supposed to cheer, whatever. I do it all the time. Me and Todd are always jumping up and down. But I went down for the warm-ups and I sat behind the Northeastern net while they were warming up. I was like probably 20 rows up just because I wanted to see the vibe of it. And it was awesome. It really was. It felt like a late round NHL buzz, you know, like maybe like the conference final type feel. I've never been to a Stanley Cup final, so I don't know. I can't compare to that, but it had the feeling, and it was like that's the beauty of the Beanpot. It's 2 games that don't mean anything in the standings, but mean everything to the players in it, you know? Yeah, it was fantastic. I can't, if you haven't ever been to a Beanpot, I suggest you go next year to the women's. It's just fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Is there any, like, besides the obviously Irving's goal, were there any like moments of gameplay that stood out to you that you were like, ooh, or anything like that? Anything pop?
Oh God.
No, it was probably too many. I mean, I was.
Yeah.
There were so many. I mean, the just how the game, you couldn't have written a better script, right?
For both games, right? Yeah, exactly, Kelly.
You know, like BC went in, you know, as the favored, and then Harvard won in overtime, right?
Shootout,
and then,
right? It went to shootout, didn't it?
Yeah, shootout.
Yeah.
That's right. And then Northeastern, you know, had one point, and then in the last 30 seconds,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, it was unbelievable games.
Well, I think we were talking before this, Brownie, and you said, like, I'm obviously grateful that we won, but I'm so grateful that we won in the first minute because I don't know if I could have taken, you know, 5 minutes of that or what, you know, whatever. It was great to win, but it came so quick. And yeah, like I said, I was in a box with about 20 Northeastern alumni, and we were just jumping around like we were toddlers, you know. I mean, it was really fun. So
it's funny you talked about and it was very loud, like in the bowl or out even in the balcony. But there's something. It must be something that the acoustics of the TD Garden, that from the press box all the way up, you can hear the refs talking to the players. It's so bizarre. At one point, Mia Langlois was in front of the net and Lily Brazis was in the corner, and I could distinctly hear Mia yell Lily from the press box in the first period. It was the weirdest, like, how acoustics work. And I don't know if that was intentional, if that was just a design thing and that's just the way it worked out. It'd be a good question for the TD Garden people, but it was a weird dynamic because it didn't feel as loud. And then in between periods, I would walk down to go see friends and it was deafening. And I'm like, oh, all right. You know, it's really kind of a weird dynamic there. But yeah, what a time. I mean, I think in anyone's vision of this or hopes, I'd say this was a resounding success. I mean, set a New England record. They just set the Canadian record for the PWHL for women's hockey, and it was 2,000 less than what was at Beanpot. So,
wow.
Yeah, but you know, did you see that? Just as a side, I think the Montreal-Toronto game is 18,000.
Yeah,
coming
crazy.
up.
And they're going to play. We were joking on the podcast. They're going to play at Scotiabank, right? When the Leafs play. And we were joking. When I do the document if I do the document for the podcast, I always like slip lines in because Jimmy will just read and not look ahead. And I put in that for that regarding those games. I was like, well, since the Leafs will be out in the first round, that should be available to the PWHL the rest of the way. And he just read it and he was like, see what you did there. Nothing better than upsetting Leafs fans, in my opinion.
Well, it's funny because you asked us, you know, a little bit about, and maybe I'm stealing one of your questions or one of your segues, but like what's next or what do we want? And I just, you know, this has been such a incredible experience personally. Having played the role that I have in the program, obviously at Northeastern, but been in women's hockey for so long. I was telling Mary that I felt like, geez, did I feel relevant? You know, did I feel like I really like it? Probably since the best.
Well, you earned that.
Since I coached, right? But I say that because I really, the relevance of this and everything moving forward, this game in Montreal, Toronto, like the trajectory is straight up like a rocket right now. And that's why we want to really kind of lock in what's going to happen next year with the Beanpot, with the Garden Group, and continue our relationship with them to be tight,
sure.
and not let too much time go by, so that we can really continue to grab onto these things that are happening and use them as momentum.
Yeah, I really feel like the energy of one thing is building off into the next. So the energy that was created around the women's Beanpot at the Garden is influencing the professional league and vice versa, and even just overall college play. And then, you know, we're certain that it's giving, you know, exposure and role models for the youth, boys and girls, to see this level of play. So I really think it's all building upon itself in the most magnificent way, and actually somewhat organically, because of course, you know, our focus was on the women's Beanpot here, but at the same thing, the PWHL has its focus. So it's amazing, and you know, when we start to cross over and pull this all together, we'll be that much stronger.
And I don't know when this is going to be released, but we're recording this Saturday morning, and 2 nights ago, the PWHL was showcased at the All-Stars.
Yeah.
So, and that's
beautiful.
NHL. Isn't that great? I mean, and friend of the podcast, former guest, Alina Mueller, it looks pretty good out there. So,
well, and how about Kendall Coyne really likes to have the NHL All-Star Weekend. I mean, remember her speed skating display that she did that really lit up the world. And then I think you have 3 assists and a goal. I mean, it was incredible.
Not too shabby.
They all look so natural out there, you know, again, like the whole elevation of expectation and, you know, not even a sign of performance jitters playing at that audience, because it's become more of a norm.
Yeah, which is good. I feel like it's like you know, they say when you're surfing, you got to catch that wave just the right way. And I feel it's a very similar, like the swell of women's hockey has been building. And I don't think it's anywhere near a crest, but I think it's that upward trajectory, you know.
I think there's so much work still to do, and where, you know, we want to be really cognizant of, you know, we really need to push this next event, because the second time is going to be harder. In a way, you know, hopefully we can harness this momentum. But I also think you're just talking about it's expected, I think, Kelly, you said. And, you know, we want the day when it's not unusual to get 18,000 people in a building for a women's hockey game, you know, and that the Beanpot is more than 10-6 and it's usual. Like, we'll never stop pushing for, you know, the next best thing in this realm. But at the same time, like, you know, the goal is for this to be the norm.
Yeah, I want to say, so just for reference, the women's Beanpot championship game last year had 1,346 attendees.
Really?
And in our debriefing call, Coach BD, as Linda calls him, said that was typical. You know, they boosted up numbers here and there on an anniversary, but that was the typical. So when you think about, you know, 1,346 attendees to 10,633, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And, you know, I like the phrase, if you build it, they will come, but it doesn't emphasize the building and how much work that is, right? And to your point about, like, you're riding the wave, or what causes that wave? A storm, right? So we need to keep that storm going, and that requires investment. That requires working to continue to build on that momentum, because just like a plant that needs water to grow, if you stop watering it, it will die. That wave will flatten out and die if we don't keep the storm moving forward. And that requires investment. And so, I think we need to keep that momentum and keep reminding and, getting it out there that it takes work, and those athletes are showing up playing at a high level. That's commitment to their game, right? And we need to reward them for that. And we need to support our college athletes who are working incredibly hard. So I think next year will definitely sell out. I think it will. I mean, there's no going back, right? People will remember it as being sold out, right? They will remember that buzz. And everyone I spoke to, I mean, a friend of mine couldn't make it because she was at jury duty and it was running late. The next day she went to jury duty and someone was there. Somehow Beanpot came up and he said, I was there. It was amazing. We're a hockey family and we decided to go and we were blown away. So we've, set an expectation. And so people will come back. They will buy their tickets as soon as they're released. And people who didn't come will say, I have to be there.
Right.
But that's going to take effort of, in 3 months, people will be like, what? What was that? We have to keep it top of mind for them.
So, okay, well, that's perfect. Then what's the plan? Where are we at? What do we need to do? What's the call to action? Like, what's the forecast? Is there a timeline?
Well, from our perspective, I think that the next step is to grow as a community. I know at Women X we have a community where you can join, and we have events, and so we'll have virtual events that people can attend. We'll start to really take this and build momentum. There's a WNBA game August 20th being played at TD Garden with Connecticut Suns. There's momentum going with the women's soccer team here in Boston. So really build a community around women's sports in Boston. And I'm excited about that because I was thinking this morning on my run, the women's game is not just for women, it's for everybody.
Right,
and that was what was so exciting about that event, the Women's Beanpot, was seeing everybody coming together.
The Women's Frozen Four is going to be at UNH this year, right up the road too. Yeah. And that'll be a good event, which I wish they would do a little better marketing with, but that will be a good event regardless of who's in it. That'll be fun.
Oh, Brownie, you know what they need, right?
You guys?
They need Women X.
Yeah. That would be a good, like, hello, I'm Mary. How can I help? Yeah.
Yes.
That's what they need.
But it does. That's what, stimulates the energy, and that was what brings together the community as well. So those two things, when they unite, we see the results, as we did with the Beanpot. The other thing, Brownie, I loved your analogy about the wave for multiple reasons.
Yeah.
But also not just the wave of women's hockey, but to the discussion we were having, I think it's a wave of all of women's sports.
Yeah.
And I think that's another great asset pulling it all together. And it's great that women's hockey is right in the mix of it. Because again, in my years growing up, we would see the more popular, more traditional female sports getting the attention, and we'd have to kind of like remind them that women's ice hockey was there. But again, now women's hockey is in the mix and is expected and considered to be there as a strong representative. So it's great. But I love your wave analogy for all of women's sports.
It's what it feels like, and I wish there was only some connection with Hockey East and UNH, some through line that maybe, is it the director of Hockey East that went to UNH? Maybe give him a quick call there and be like, hey buddy, I don't want to blow him up. He was very nice to me when I met him the other day, but that would be a person that I would lean on maybe a little. So when you guys had your debriefing. Is that,
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that. What was like, I'm sure everybody, the first 10 minutes was like, oh, did you see this? Oh, did you see that? But then after that, what was the message? What was the decompression? What was that like?
I mean, I guess I'd just say that, like, we definitely had that, camaraderie chat, like good to see everybody again. And how did everybody's night go? Because a lot of us didn't see each other that night. I think some of the takeaways are talking about, well, first and foremost, the call to action, other than building our community, like Mary said, is to get dates.
Yep.
So that we can get our eyes on the prize, to know if that semifinal game is going to get into the Garden as well the week before.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but is that a Hockey East question, or is that a TD Garden, or is that a conjunction question? How does that work?
It's hard to say. We have to figure that out. We need to talk to the Garden. We're hoping to do a download meeting with them as well, because we're very curious what their takeaways are, so that we can, again, continue to align. But figuring out the next steps is sort of figuring out the next steps,
And before you go to the next steps, I just pulled up our doc. So I wanted to
nice.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
I wanted to say what we first said is, what were we trying to accomplish? So we outlined, right? And it was to sell out TD Garden. We nearly did that. We did that in spirit. Make history. We did that.
Check.
Demonstrate our community is ready and willing to show up for our women's college ice hockey teams. Did that.
Yep.
Build awareness and excitement about the women's Beanpot. I mean, some people didn't even know there was a women's Beanpot.
Yeah.
Right. So we did that. Create best practices and collect information for future women's Beanpot. We did that with our community. Grow women's Beanpot community. We started that and are building that, and engage alumni players from the colleges. Did that with the Beanpot Hall of Fame, honoring. So we hit all of our objectives.
Yeah. That's the check mark, drag down, fill, right? Good.
So I think next year it's basically sell out TD Garden by numbers and continue to do those, to fulfill and meet those objectives.
Yeah. So I guess, like you said, the date's the first thing. And so has there been internal discussions about having a consistent date or versus moving around flexibility wise? I know we talked before we were recording a little bit about breaking away from the men's tournament and having it be a standalone event. I mean, where are you guys at with that?
I think our next step is then to continue, I mean, whether you call us consultants or advisors with the TD Garden, i.e. Boston Bruins, and really looking at their logistic part of it. But I think our goal is to then lock in a date. We see the strength of the men's Beanpot is you don't need to record the date. You just know it's the first and second Monday of February. So something like that, probably stay focused on the January date. It seemed to work really well. And being mindful for when the students are back on campus. But the timing seemed excellent, just in the flow of schedules and life and community. So really work to get that locked in date and, have something on people's schedule throughout the years that they look forward to.
It just popped in my head. How crazy is it that you talked about talking to the Bruins? Your high school teammate, buddy, is the head of the Bruins alumni.
Yeah.
Hey, Bob, it's me, Kelly. What's up?
We did that. So
I know it's just crazy to connect that. Like, it just popped in my head.
Bobby was super helpful and also very supportive. He came down to see us. We were on Nesson a couple of times, and I saw him, hanging out in the sidelines. Always something positive to say. I tried to get him to come cold dipping. But he's also very good friends with Katie King Crowley with the Boston College connection too. So, no, he's always been, great in this capacity, and he was kind of key of setting us up to meet the team at the Garden and the Bruins.
That's Bob Sweeney, for anyone listening that doesn't know. Swoop, number 20. Yeah. No, that's great. So how long of, or if there isn't, I apologize, how long of are you like, all right, we'll let them get through the Beanpot for the men's, and then, or are you guys already like, hey, don't forget, hello, we would like to do, I mean, what's the strategy there in terms of timing?
Well, for us, I mean, we're just going to continue to collect our information and strategize on. We're just going to assume, right, that there'll be a date announced, and once the men's Beanpot is over, I think we'll knock on doors again to get this moving. But we're going to continue to gather our information and think about what needs to get done to continue to grow on this momentum.
I think what's really cool also, just to add in, and again, a credit to the TD Garden group, but we're on a text thread with one of the organizers, and we've been talking about other things, and she's been looking for other information for some other events they're having and just the connection to hockey. So we've had some other conversations that aren't Beanpot related when she was looking for, someone to come in for some events this month for Black History Month. So we've developed this, relationship, and we're very much, hopeful that this continues, especially under, under the Women X, and, presenting as that Boston Unites, but also through Women Mary and Women X, in helping them out with some future events. That just speaks to sort of how we left it with them. We're continuing to talk. We're kind of patiently waiting. We've asked about the Beanpot a couple of times, but we know they've got some things on their plate. So
that's such a coach, Linda. That's such a coach speak. Like, make yourself invaluable. You can kill penalties. You can, you know what I mean? You can play the power play. Make yourself that you have to be on the ice or on the playing field. Just, it's such a coach speak. It's a great mindset for this instance too, because you want to make yourselves invaluable to the people at TD Garden. And if they're like, who could help us with this? Oh, I know who could help us with this. And then pick up the call, and that's when it starts the momentum in the relationship for them.
Well, and it's infectious. I mean, personally for me, it's been infectious. Like I said, it's lit up a part of me that I haven't, had for probably, like I said, since I coached. I don't know, when it comes to, the sport. So it's been, and the major purpose, it's been really great.
Yeah, same with me. It really has energized me, back to wanting to bring my focus of what's next for me back to girls, women, and all the benefits that it brings.
Yeah, and I just want to also add to TD Garden, Tricia McCorkle and Courtney DeSano were incredible partners. And I think it was after the second period, between the second and third period, they brought us up and publicly thanked us.
Oh yeah, that's great.
It was incredible. It was Kelly on one side, Linda on the other, and there was a long line of all the people from Nesson and TD Garden, everybody who was involved. And Megan, one of the people from the TD Garden team, said, "Mary, come here. You get in the center." And had me right in the center. They had our, video up on the.
We were holding the Beanpot. They were like, "You three, like they're here's the Beanpot," and they were like, "You three stand in the middle and hold the Beanpot for this." And I actually want to get a picture, like a legit picture of that, because I think I have a lot of iPhone pictures that people took. But they were gracious for sure.
Yeah, and I thank Tricia and Courtney for that, because not everyone would publicly thank in that way. And I really appreciated, and that it was an incredible partnership we had for that event, and I really enjoyed working with them. So I'm really hopeful. I loved what I saw coming out of TD Garden. It's a great team.
I'm telling you, the vibe of the whole thing, everybody's happy. Everybody's willing to lift everybody else up. It's the rising tide lifts all boats mentality. And it's so refreshing. It really is. It's a very different dynamic than you get in a lot of other sporting events and situations. And for that, I mean, it's so like some of my guys I play with are like, "Why are you covering women's hockey?" I'm like, "'Cause it's awesome." Like, go to a game, watch it. It's fantastic. Everyone, it really is. I mean, it's, everybody, the NHL gets all the shine, right? And NCAA men's, but I say it all the time with every player or coach I have on. Pound for pound, the best hockey value in Boston or probably in North America is women's hockey. I mean, it's unbelievable. It really is. And everyone, you don't have to worry about taking your kids, that's another big part of it. And the players are so engaging and so willing to. I tell this story about Alina Mueller all the time. When she was a senior, her 4th year, she was a big deal. She always has been. She scored an Olympic goal at 16 years old. I'm sitting there with my daughter waiting for Coach Karp. She didn't know me, just saw my daughter and stopped. Walking by after an interview on TV, stopped, took like a few minutes, like, oh, did you have a good time? She didn't know who I was. This is before I interviewed her and knew her, and that has grown into, hey, I'm having on player X. I can shoot Alina a text and be like, hey, do you have some words to say about this player that used to play with the Northeastern? And she'll take the time to answer. They're just great people, and they've worked so hard, and they deserve all this. They deserve everything, all of this, Yeah, I know I sound like a fanatic sometimes, but again, we talked about this last time. Keep the focus of happy what's happened. Don't get mad at how long it took, right? That's I keep saying that to myself, but yeah.
Well, I think what you're saying, for me, it's at those events, everyone's winning.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And that feels good. It's difficult times in our country, and it's great to go to an event where everybody's winning.
Yeah. That's a much more concise way to say it than my rambles, for sure, Mary. Much better. Well, I think Kelly left. I think she had to go. I really appreciate you guys coming back on to kind of give like a bookend to this. I look forward to doing whatever little nonsense we provide to help. I mean, it's a spoonful in the ocean, but if we can make a few extra ticket sales by doing this nonsense that, like I said, we've Forrest Gumped our way into, then I'm happy to do whatever we can to support this whole venture, Beanpot, Northeastern, and women's hockey as a whole. And I really want to thank you guys for all the hard work you've done. For, as a proud girl dad, the fact that my daughter can go to these games and, get to see women hockey players, it's a big deal. Representation matters, and we say that all the time, but to say it versus seeing it firsthand for my daughter is a big deal. And it's important, really is. I mean, we have a chicken name,
and it's funny that you say that, Brownie, because my kids are 4 and 7, 4-year-old girl, 7-year-old boy, and they weren't at the Beanpot. They, we moved out of state, as I mentioned, so they were watching on TV, and they felt very slighted. They wanted to go to. They're used to going to the Huskies. Like, you're in good company when you say you're fanatical, because we're all,
Yeah.
But we're coming in town for February 17th is the Alumni Day. A little plug for that for any alumni listening. But to gather again in this exciting time. And the team is playing really well right now. But
undefeated since the Beanpot. No, touch wood. They're playing later today. Let me knock wood.
Yeah. My kids are only 4 and 7, like I said, and they are so excited to get to go to the Huskies on the 17th. I mean, like I said, they've done that in their past. They're used to growing up doing that, but they were excited about that was on TV and their connection to the program. You were just talking about Alina and what these, it's just a special group and a special place. So, but I think the Beanpot really drove that for them. Like, oh, now we get to go, and they won. And so it's really cool. I mean, they're just so young, and they're influenced by it. So.
Yeah, well, you think when you go to that alumni, you were talking about all the iPhone pictures, you're going to get a whole new batch when you go to that alumni game from the Beanpot. Yeah, for all the people that you missed that night.
Yeah.
Airdrop will be great that day for all those other pictures. And if you're at Matthews for the main game the week before, weather permitting, myself and my co-host, we will be doing a live podcast from Matthews, historic Matthews Arena. And Ket Delaney, we have a phone call later. She told Ked he could get in the Paws outfit, the mascot uniform. So I hope he fits in it. And personally, I hope he falls, because that would be great for me. But we'll see how that goes. But yeah,
I'll be watching from afar. And
well,
Mary,
thank you so much.
Thank you for all your hard work, And please go to womenx.org, check it out. I mean, there's so much there. Every time I go, because I'm looking for my little cousin and I've been talking to her mom about it. Every time I go on, I see something. I'm like, oh, then there's this too. Yeah. So
thanks so much for your support.
Anything we can do to help. Well, that's it for this Saturday edition of the Morning Skate. We will be back to our normal nonsense filled with expletives once we're no longer affiliated with NCAA, any type of event. And we look forward to seeing you guys all at Historic Matthews and for even a bigger crowd at the TD Garden for next year's Women's Beanpot. Boston Unites. Thank you. And now everybody gets to listen to me fumble to find the end record button. Actually, that wasn't that bad. I found it right here. All right, guys. Thank you.
Thanks.